Hey everyone, Jan here, codingwithjan.com. Today, we will talk about the most recent trends in theme development. And as special guests, I'm here with Marcus and Darren from Clean Canvas, one of the most successful theme companies out there. And Marcus being the managing director, Darren being director of operations, also senior lead developer and project manager behind their brand new theme Enterprise, which by the time I'm recording this was just launched a week ago. So yeah, I think they should know best, and I got some difficult questions for them prepared. So let's find out what they had to say. All right, gentlemen, I'm super excited to have you here today. And maybe for someone who, never heard of Clean Canvas, would you like to introduce yourself and the company really quick? People on YouTube, they always want to know why they should listen.
No problem. First of all, thanks very much for having us, Jan. I have to say, on behalf of the whole Clean Canvas team, we're big fans of your work. So we do tend to watch an awful lot of the stuff you create. It's fantastic. But in terms of Clean Canvas, we are obviously a developer of premium Shopify themes. We're since the release of our latest theme, Enterprise, which we launched last week, we are the largest supplier of themes to the Shopify theme store. So we've 9 themes in our current catalog. We're also one of the longest serving theme store partners. I think we were there since about 2010, 2011 was our first foray onto the theme store. I mean, the Shopify theme store, for anybody who wants to know, officially opened in April 2010. So it was very, very early days that we got in there. Prior to that, Clean Canvas really started focused on print and digital graphic media design, but eventually did pivot solely just into developing premium Shopify themes with a little bit of a foray into apps, which Clean Canvas sold on. We've a good number of our themes are consistently in the top 10 selling themes on the theme store. We've supplied themes to well in excess of 80,000 merchants. I mean, we stopped counting some while ago, but we've a huge spread of themes across all types of merchant sizes, brands, business models. We've a team of 13 people, mainly based in the UK, with a few members spread across Ireland, Denmark, and France, and the Czech Republic. Myself, I'm managing director. For anybody who knows me, in my prior life, I was senior theme partnerships manager at Shopify before moving over to this phenomenal team. And that's it from me. I'll pass it over to Darren to introduce himself.
Thank you very much. Yeah, hi, Anne. Thanks for having us. So I joined Clean Canvas in 2019. Before that, I used to work for a web design agency. So I can sort of brought that little bit of experience as well with me. Of course, I foresaw the pandemic, and I could see that happening. So I thought I'd switch quickly to e-commerce because that was going to boom. No, I didn't see that happening. I joined as a senior developer. I sort of had a stint sorting out some operations stuff within the company, getting us running smoother. Since Marcus joined, he's taken that off me, thankfully, so I can get back to the developing. I was sort of the lead developer on Enterprise, along with the rest of the team.
Okay, that sounds awesome. As you guys know, today we wanted to talk about trends in building themes. I mean, you've just launched one, and I think it's important to be aware of trends on both sides, like the merchant side, and then obviously also the development side of things, or the developer side. So maybe we can get started with the merchant side. How did you even come up with a concept for your latest theme? That would be super interesting.
This is something that, it even stems back to the early days of the theme store. When I was working in Shopify, we used to require that people, when they were submitting a theme, would come forward with a concept or a brief or an idea of what the approach and what problem the theme was solving. There's always a certain amount of melting pot of ideas that will be on a table, generally around, the business models, real world merchant needs, as you said, and being conscious of those type of things. In terms of Enterprise, it came about, I suppose there was indications, of this post-pandemic trends. There was people that had literally quickly scaled online. An awful lot of people either had, just ramped up their operations. There is, drop shipping was obviously still a massive element as well. So there was a huge need for not only selling stuff, but also, increasing conversion rates, in building, loyalty, retention, return customers. So we were looking at this and we're going, we need something that's heavy on promotion, conversion, providing really good customer experience, because that's obviously the end point at the end of the day, is the customer making sales. So we were really focused on delivering performance. So they got that incredible UX experience. So there was a certain period of incubation and project shaping, but I think, Darren, you could probably give a good outline on how the whole thing coalesced.
Yeah, sure. So at the time we decided to do a new theme, we already had 8 themes in the store. So we had a fairly good spread of different sort of niches, of different sort of merchants that we were sort of catering for. So back in the day, when was this? Probably about 2 years ago. We all work remotely. So the first thing we did, we all got together in Guildford in the UK, and the designers basically presented. They literally had printouts of different website concepts, different store theme concepts, and we stuck them all up on a huge wall. And we all basically took it from there and discussed the different kinds of themes that we could build and the merits of each. In the end, we decided on going for something a bit different, something that we hadn't really pushed for before, which, like Marcus said, it was the sort of the large inventory, the sort of the catering to drop shippers, the focus on the conversion rate optimization sort of merchants. So yeah, we decided to just go for something that perhaps we hadn't sort of focused on before, as a bit of an exciting sort of new leaf for us.
Okay, that's super interesting. You mentioned the brainstorming started like 2 years ago, so that would also be super interesting on the side. Like, how long did development even take? No.
Well, don't ask the directors, because they'll say ages, but I think it was super quick. No, yeah. it was. So we started actually by creating a blank canvas, a boilerplate theme. Which we sort of established all of our coding conventions. We set up all of our linting. We did the basics of everything. So here's a basic product page, here's a basic collection page, etc. So it had the foundation of everything we needed. So that took a while to develop that, because we built that from scratch, like with like essentially no starting point. We looked at the principles in Dawn. And we sort of took those and ran with those. We didn't take too much code from Dawn, but we took the principles. And a developer called Tim sort of started that process and really made that boilerplate. So that took a while, sort of probably about 9 months, 8 months. And then Enterprise started kind of alongside that, kind of in parallel to the boilerplate being completed. So in total, probably about 16 months, I reckon.
Okay. Yeah, it was quite a scary process in terms of, like, from a management point of view. You're looking at, not only are we trying to develop a new product, we're trying to develop a new framework, we're trying to do the two of them in tandem, and we're doing something completely different than what we've developed before. So while obviously I was on the guy's case saying, listen, we need this built, we need it out, we want this selling, business conscious or whatever, I was also very focused on making sure that the guys had the space to do this right, because for us, this is a long-term investment. This framework that we've built, we'll get into the extensibility and stuff later on, but it is something that we're going to refactor all our themes into this new framework as well. So we've done an awful lot of experimentation, an awful lot of QA and testing, which was like almost to the point of everybody's frustration that we were that granular on being so pernickety about every single aspect. And I think that has stood to the quality of the theme that has come out.
Okay, yeah, so I see quite a lot of development went into that. And that's also interesting, because that would be the direction I want to take this a little bit. Maybe you could speak a bit on the team's approach to design and UX when it comes to development in general.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give a little bit of an outline sort of on what our general approach is around design, and then I suppose Darren can go into a bit more of the granular detail around the UX considerations and so on. But yeah, listen, I mean, we firmly center ourselves around ensuring that we've exceptionally good UX. Everything's it's function almost over form. And I know there's this constant battle of function, form, design, development, and this internal battle of like, which is more important, or how do they work in tandem. Generally, we tend to favor function, because at the end of the day, we're not designing works of art. What we are designing is essentially tools to help people fulfill something. But we want to give them the ability to obviously express themselves through their own identities and brands and looks, but at the same time, give them the exact right tools that they need, so that their customers have an enjoyable experience, but also at the same time get them quick to market. So I mean, it's all of that has to be then, how to put it, wrapped up with focus on, browser and device compatibility. Those are all serious points to consider. From a design perspective, clean canvas, I suppose an awful lot's given away in the name. We really go for, conventional real world commerce, professionalism, strong brand aesthetics. We like classic design principles. Our designers come from a print background as well. So I think an awful lot of those core design principles really do shine through in an awful lot of our work and our design systems. We do put in, as I mentioned, an infuriating level of detail and an infuriating level of testing, and every little aspect is mapped out. So while we do have a house style of sorts, we do try and give each theme its own identity, given whatever the focus of that particular theme is. So yeah, I mean, the UX elements are that lovely dance between the functionality and the form. And I suppose, Darren, you can probably speak a bit more to, like, mapping out how these features play out in terms of from the designers into the developers' hands.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's quite an interesting process because I came from like I mentioned, a web design agency. So they're the designers, they make the designs, they do a desktop, mobile, tablet, you code that. It's pretty much, there's no real changes from the design. When you're in the theme world, you've got hundreds of settings that in about 3 settings just change, they change the design completely. Or you've got to consider right to left. There's all sorts of things that actually go into this. So the lead designer on the project, Stephen, he created quite high fidelity design, which we take as the start point. It's a very collaborative process from there. So it's impossible for him to think about every setting that may go into a section and what that may look like. So it's really about communication and iterations of taking each section, working with him. So myself and Katie, another developer here, worked on that process essentially with Stephen. So taking those designs, figuring out the best way to implement them. And as long as we can achieve the design with the settings that we provide in the sections or whatever it may be, that's the successful end goal. But then, whatever me and Katie can do to provide more value to the merchant, in terms of they may be to change quite a lot of stuff actually with the settings, whether the designers like that or not, is sometimes a moot point, because I think the merchants also really appreciate that. So it's a very communicative, iterative process. And yeah, the other things are enterprise in particular. The focus for me and the team were really speed. So we wanted to keep this as quick as possible. So it's also just small things like, reducing the amount of fonts there are in a design because each font takes a bit longer to load, making sure all of the media queries are consistent. I'm not saying these things weren't done, but it's just ensuring that this stuff is in place just to make sure that everything performs well, basically. So yeah, it's a very iterative process.
Yes. Yeah. From what you said, it sounds like a very complex optimization problem. I mean, from what Marcus said, it's like, okay, flexibility, but it also has to be straightforward, can't be too complicated, then lots of different devices. And then Darren, okay, there's like the designer, but then there are also so many different stores, so many different edge cases, things change a bit. Yeah, I can totally see that.
Yeah.
A big challenge.
It's a challenge, and it's also exciting. It's, when you actually sell these themes and you see what merchants create, it's like, wow, like is that the theme? And you look at it, go, yeah, it is. They've just got, the tools that we give them. They can make things, they can make things that maybe don't look so good, but they can make things look just amazing. It's not what necessarily you had in mind in the designs, but they've taken it somewhere else, and it's great. It's quite exciting to see.
Yeah, I think that flexibility is it's something that's important, because obviously we know the amount of people that are using Shopify, or the amount of people that will use Shopify eventually, or port into it from other e-commerce platforms. They come with an idea of what they want their store to look like, or what their identity is. So being able for them to express through the tools and the systems that we've provided is, it's very rewarding to see.
Yes. Yeah, that sounds awesome. And I mean, it seems like you guys figured this out, being constantly in the top 10 of best-selling themes. Okay, so now we've been talking about flexibility, and this is also interesting in terms of extendability. Like, themes have to be extendable to some degree. Before this conversation, we talked about, or you also mentioned your new framework, and we've been talking about exposed JavaScript events. Maybe to catch everyone up here, Darren, could you quickly speak on that, or explain what that even means in the first place?
Yeah, sure. So I guess when a developer picks up a theme and they need to fulfill a client brief, time is money, and they need to be able to get up and running as quickly as possible. They probably want to, have the least stressful experience possible, really, getting to the end result. So yeah, that's quite important to us. So before JavaScript events, I guess there's a lot of basics which you can get wrong if you're not careful. So just making sure that the code is really clean. Variable names are very clear in what they're doing. Like, they may sometimes be longer than they need to, but I find that's better if they're clearer into what they're actually doing. Yeah. Good organization, having loads of comments. With snippets in Liquid, if they're not documented at the top, what arguments they take and what the snippet does, it's very difficult, and you have to read through all of the code of the snippet to actually figure out what you can pass in. So it's little easy things like that which I think are important to nail. And then there's also so in enterprise in particular, there's a whole host of JavaScript events that actually one of the other developers here, Coralie, helped work on. So she came from the other side of the coin. So she was often implementing themes for clients. So she could provide a bit of insight into sort of what kind of things that she would like to see. Yeah, so we've got a ton of JavaScript events in there, from firing when something gets added to the cart or removed from the cart, or the variant changes, or even when the cart drawer opens, we fire an event after that event happens, or before, just, if you want to do anything to the cart, and the same thing to close it and refreshing the cart. So yeah, ton of the basics, which hopefully are nailed, and all of the sort of the more complex stuff like the JavaScript events also. And then the other side of it is documentation, which, as developers, we all know how frustrating inadequate documentation is, and how much it slows the process down. So yeah, we've got documentation on the support site. We bundle a custom.js file in with our theme as well, so developers can very quickly read exactly what's going on in the theme. Yeah. And then in the theme editor as well, when you're actually tinkering with the settings, if there's a bit of an Easter egg there, if you open up your console and open up your dev tools and open the console, as you're clicking around, opening the cart drawer, adding stuff to cart, you can see all of the events firing, and awesome. They'll tell you what parameters they're passing to those events and stuff as well. So yeah, it's documentation is the other big thing, I think.
Okay, yeah, got it. That makes total sense. My next question would have been, why do you think this is so important? But I think you answered that well. So it's like, okay, maybe this is even a good learning for someone who's thinking about building themes, like also thinking about the developers who are using the theme, exposing as many events as possible, making the code super clean so that customizations can be done, in a clean way, efficient way, and the theme is just even more flexible in that terms.
Yeah.
I mean, even just like chatting with an awful lot of agencies that do an awful lot of high profile client work, like Shopify Plus partners, so on and so forth. vast amount of these people, just exactly as Darren was saying, they haven't got the time to invest, because I mean, whatever about building a theme is not just a static element. There's continual maintenance, updates, bug fixes, latest Shopify feature integrations. It's an investment over time, and it is, you know, there's a huge amount of a workload that comes with that. So these agencies tend to prefer to find a really good theme that they can work with, and then shape on top of that to meet those custom needs for those specific stores. For ourselves supplying to the theme store, I mean, we have to try and cater to the money. So we're you know, we have to make conscious decisions about not including certain very niche little elements, because obviously they'll be adding to performance load, or they may only be very small use specific cases for these individual items with a tiny subsection of merchants. So while we build for the many, we want to also provide the facility so that these type of agencies or developers or whoever else can also further monetize their services based off the work that we do.
Okay, yes, got it. And now off to some, I even want to say inconvenient questions. As you guys know, performance is always like a big concern with all the merchants right now, also developers. So yeah, what do you guys do to maintain a good performance? You're speaking on that a little bit, but yeah, I would like to know more.
Aaron, that's for you.
Yeah, sure. No, go on, Marcus. Talk about the code and the performance.
Listen, I could do, because I've listened so much to you over the last 16 months about it.
Ranting about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the performance is really important. I guess let's start with why. Why is it important? There's been lots of research done into conversion rates versus speed, site speed. So it's crucial to have a very fast site. Also, Google favors fast sites, so it's really important for SEO. So those two factors, you know, I think if anyone's releasing a theme in 2023, it has to be as fast as possible, basically. So that's what we try to do with Enterprise, and I think it is pretty fast, if I say so myself. So the first thing we did, we decided quite early on that we were going to not include any third-party libraries, except for one instant page, which I will come on to. So no jQuery, no slideshow libraries. Essentially, we didn't want any bloat, no code bloat. We didn't want any bit of code that isn't being used. So yeah, we developed these things sort of in-house, especially for their purpose within our themes. So that was the first thing that we decided to do. And yeah, working without jQuery, you know, is great. I'm a convert. It feels strange going back to it now. You know, 5 years ago, you know, the first thing you do when you start a project, you include jQuery and you're away. But now, yeah, it doesn't feel nice at all. So that was the first thing, the sort of first big decision we decided, which, you know, is part of the reason why it did take a while to make it. The next thing is we wanted to make use of code splitting. So in the old days, you would usually write, you would have separate files in your editor, and you would write your CSS and your JavaScript, and then you probably have a compiler running to mash them all down into one CSS file or one JavaScript file. And the user lands on the site, that file gets downloaded, may take a little time, downloads, and then you're away. Problem with that is there's sort of 80% of each file is not needed. The code in that is not needed for the page that you're on. And yeah, it's just time sort of wasted. So we decided to make use of the fact that Shopify now runs on HTTP2. So it can serve, it means it can essentially serve lots of little files in one response, basically. So having lots of little JavaScript files or lots of little CSS files is essentially, there's no overhead to it. So everything we wrote is compartmentalized. So if you include a slideshow section, for example, at that point and that point only, that's when the slideshow.js or the slideshow.css file gets included. And it keeps everything very lean. There's only what you need, only the code you need is on the page. So that was one of the main things. And you know, we took this to the level of, so there's one file called main.css, which does include all of the general stuff that's probably needed on all pages, including Tailwind classes. So it gets to the point where, as you're writing the code, you've got to think like, if I include this Tailwind utility to make the padding, 6 above, is that actually used anywhere else in the theme? And if it's not, I maybe don't want to do that, and I maybe want to move that to the slideshow CSS. So these are the kind of the level of detail that you start to worry about. You're saving a couple of bytes at a time, but it all adds up. So yeah, it was an interesting sort of exercise to undertake. And I think that the Lighthouse speed and GT metrics results sort of speak for themselves, especially if you use the right settings in the theme in the right way. You can really make stuff super quick. There's other things as well, so I guess relatively standard. So lazy load images, I think all themes, I hope, do that. We also lazy load code as well. So for example, on the collection page within our theme, you can tick things to compare, and you can hit a button saying compare, and it'll open a pop-up, and it will have columns of products that you can compare. If you don't interact with that button, you don't need the compare code for the pop-ups and everything. So even to the point where when you hit that button, that's when the CSS and the JavaScript for that gets imported. So yeah, little optimizations like that, I think, really help. And then we also made use of Instant Page, which I mentioned earlier, which is kind of annoying because it's like the one library, which means we can't say we're completely library free. It's the one library that we do include. It's behind a setting, so you don't have to have it. So that's really useful, because that, when you hover over a link, they claim there's a 60 millisecond delay because humans are that slow. So when you hover over a link to actually clicking it, in that time, we can essentially in the background fetch the page. And by the time you click on it, we may already have it. So it gives the appearance of a very, very fast page. So yeah, that's the one and only library that we included. And then yeah, as you can tell, I'm quite passionate about I'll keep rabbiting on, passionate about the speed of what you can do now. So the other thing is lots of little settings within the theme. So you can turn on animations in the theme. So as you scroll down, things can come in quite nicely. However, you may not want that to happen for stuff above the fold as you land on the page. So Lighthouse will report that the largest contentful paint or the cumulative layout shift occurred. So what we have is settings for certain key sections like the slideshow, where you can actually disable the animation if they appear at the top of the page. So you can actually sort of optimize your page experience to eliminate some of those sort of speed penalties, if you like. Yeah, I feel like I've talked about performance for way too long, but yeah, I could go on. But yeah, it's super important in the latest build, and I really enjoyed sort of getting my hands dirty with that level of code.
Yes. No, I think this is really interesting. Also, yeah. Sorry, Marcus, go ahead. You first.
No, I was just going to say, and further to that, Darren actually created a blow-by-blow guide on how you can configure the settings within the theme to optimize all this performance elements that are in there. And we supplied that with our user guide. So even merchants can take advantage of this as well, with a bit of education around it.
Oh, okay, that's perfect. Yeah, I also thought it was very interesting how you talked about HTTP2 and then multiple scripts in one request. I didn't even know that was possible. And then, yeah, all the settings. So yeah, it really sounded like you took a lot of things into consideration. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, now looking at my notes here. So we've already come quite a long way. We started about talking, the whole topic was talking about trends, and we've seen, okay, on the merchant side, it's still important to come up with a concept first, have a theme that solves a problem, great UX design. Then on the development side, there were exposed JavaScript events, the need for extensibility. So that's an important consideration when building themes. Lots of great stuff in here. And now moving on, as we're speaking to a developer audience, I would like to know, what would be your advice for someone who's like interested in creating and publishing their own themes? And especially Marcus, I know you have your very own opinion here. So maybe you want to go first.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, I was an advocate for the theme store and themes building and the whole themes ecosystem. I think, after this conversation, it gives a good idea of what operating at a premium level of themes is like. There is a huge lift. There's a huge demand. And this is only the build. This isn't even the maintenance, the upkeep, the support, and all those elements. So there is a big picture there. And I'm not trying to terrify anybody. I'm certainly not trying to scare. It's an exciting and very interesting thing. What I will say, though, is like we've often, and this is being part of, I suppose, the narrative that's come out from Shopify, even from the early days, we generally tend to think of partners or developers as just individuals or hobbyists or people upskilling and stuff like that. And they feel then that at the end of this, they need to produce a product and they need to be maintaining and doing this. What I would say to them is think about the other opportunities that are being opened here. There is a massive amount of, well-experienced, well-tenured agencies, companies that really need talent. So, what you're doing is you're providing yourself with a skill set that would make you very attractive to the likes of these, plus partners, agencies, even like ourselves and other theme partners who are constantly needing to look for, developers and talent. So, while you're looking at this going, a theme feels almost like too much of a project to take on. Do not let that dissuade. What I would say is more to the point of get familiar with this, learn how to do it, because what you're doing is you're making yourself a very attractive option to an awful lot of agencies. I was also at a recent retail event, e-commerce live in Belfast. Giving them a shout out, brilliant event. But an awful lot of the merchants from quite sizable brands were there, and they were discussing about the change of retail teams within these businesses. So it's no longer just the warehouse manager, the front of house manager, the feet on the floor, the retail operatives. These people actually now need developers. They need in-house tech teams. They need people who are able to process the orders, create the custom experiences. So it's not even just behind the scenes as creating products for these merchants, but it's actually to be part of these merchants' tech teams as well. So getting familiar with themes, getting familiar with the back end of all of these services that are offered gives you a huge range of opportunities out there. And then obviously I'm just going to give a shout out, Jan, to yourself. And obviously the courses that you run, the network and the data base of the talent pool that you guys are creating is exceptional. The jobmint.io, I think this is going to be a great port of call for an awful lot of agencies like ourselves, where we can go in and find this new upcoming talent that have upskilled in these areas. And I think that would be my main advice, is maybe seek some experience in these areas, or maybe try and combine yourself with other talented people in different disciplines and look at creating a group, because trying to do it individually might be a bit overwhelming, depending on the size of how you're trying to target your growth.
Yes, I think that's great advice. And I mean, we've talked we've talked a lot about this, like how much thought went into the theme. Then obviously there's ongoing maintenance. How big is your support team, if I may ask? Just curious.
We're lucky enough. I suppose there's 13 members on Clean Canvas. We keep our operations quite streamlined, so we managed to produce an awful lot with an incredible team. I just have to say it's two things really stand to that. One, there's a fantastic ethic within the team. There's just everybody feels very much part of everything we create, and everybody has an input. So, everybody's invested in what we do. They're all incredibly talented. I think we're lucky in the sense that we have incredible tenure here. Like anybody that comes to Clean Canvas tends to stay here. We've people here that are, here over 11 years, over 9 years. So, I mean, this accumulated experience levels that are in there really help us ensure that we don't have to repeat mistakes, or we have learned from lessons, or we've learned from merchant feedback. We have dedicated support. We have 3 people, all ex-Shopify, all exceptionally talented and knowledgeable on our products. So I feel the support we offer is it's white glove, to say the least. These people do platform guidance. They're exceptionally talented in understanding all the nuances and the setups and use cases for our themes as well as the platform. But in saying that, support is not gated. So it's, if we have a large amount of support or people are needed, everybody jumps in, myself included. We all jump in, we take tickets from merchants. It keeps us connected with the people that are using our products as well. So, supporting merchants is a team-wide, responsibility, I suppose. And literally we have 3 main operatives who sort of funnel that and oversee it and sort of divvy those tickets out to where it's needed.
Yes. Yeah, I think it was just important to touch on that for anyone who thinks about starting this individually or as an individual. So yeah, I really liked your advice with starting maybe in a company first or as an in-house developer, gaining experience as much as you can. And then you can still think about if you even want to tackle this in the first place.
Completely. Because I mean, the thing is, I mean, what we touched on at the start of the concept, it's like we build for merchants because we have had experience, as I said, with over 80,000 merchants. So we have seen so much that we have a great understanding of what works and what doesn't. The only way to get that is to get experience. And so it's like that catch-22 scenario. So getting in to work with an agency, getting to work in with an in-house tech company, whatever, even if it's contract elements, it gains experience. And that is really vital.
And just to add to that, I think, I agree with everything Marcus said. I think if you're a developer and you start just boshing a theme out, I think you'll very quickly find where the gaps are in your own ability. Finding the right market, finding good content to actually put on your demo stores to actually showcase your theme. And, stuff like testing is so important, because if you don't get the testing of your products right, you're gonna drown in support in merchants that are having issues. So we've got 2 amazing developers, testers, Susie and Laura. And I guess even calling them testers is probably doing a disservice, because they're not just checking that there are no bugs, they're actually validating what we do. And they are looking at it from a completely different angle and saying, this doesn't make any sense.
Okay, yeah.
And I'll be like, well, it makes sense to me. And they're like, no, if you think about it like this. And I'll go, oh yeah, actually, yeah, you're completely right. Because I made it. It makes sense in my head, but it makes no sense to anyone else. So it really helps to, I think, have that team around you.
Absolutely.
Yes, that sounds like a fun job, just trying to break themes all day long.
Yeah, it is. It's incredible. I have to say, the quality of our products and the usability of our products really wouldn't be where it is without what they do. And it's, their ability not to only just view things in terms of product quality and making sure functionality exists, but actually taking in the viewpoint of the merchant and stress testing it in all use cases and environments. It's quite incredible.
Fantastic.
And I think it's probably one of the reasons why we can have a support team of 3 people full time. It's probably as a result of that, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, yeah, that's important to keep in mind. That's already at an efficient point. So yeah, okay, that's good to know. Okay, so then you've just launched a theme. What's next? Do you have plans with Clean Canvas? Any exciting projects? What are you working on now? What's up?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, as we mentioned, we have released, the technical guides that sort of show the exposed JS events and the various areas that people can sort of hook into with enterprise. We're going to be releasing more technical guides that's going to further expand that. So, developers can use and leverage our experience and our products, sort of take it to the next level with an individual client that they might be working with. So that's on the way. As we mentioned, and as Darren really well painted out in terms of our performance, our framework build, the whole lot, we are porting all our existing themes over onto this. So not only will the performance gains be, just evident in enterprise, but every single one of our catalogs will be benefiting from this, which also means then the extensibility that we will have inherent in enterprise will also be across all our catalogs. So it'll make it very, it'll provide a great selection for any agencies or developers who want to use our themes. They've got a broad range of stuff that they can plug into, and they know exactly how to work with it because they become familiar with it. The other thing then as well, you heard it here first, is we are going to be starting an affiliate program shortly as well. So there's a way to actually make a little bit of revenue off the back of our hard work. So stay tuned for that.
Hook me up.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, and I mean, listen, we have 9 themes out there. We have streamlined our organization to be like, we try to mitigate, as Darren pointed out, we try to mitigate any problems by ensuring the quality, and that we have an exceptional aftercare service with our support team. So we are potentially going to be looking at new themes as well, but nothing concrete yet, but stay tuned.
And a theme is never finished. Like you go live with a theme. There's no such thing as an endpoint. In a client project, you deliver the project, invoice gets paid, and you're done. Themes, it never stops. You're constantly evolving the theme. You're constantly listening to merchants, adding new features, taking it to the next level, competing, a healthy competition with other theme partners on the theme store, which is all great for the merchant. So, it never stops. So it's, more of a continued improvement.
Okay, so yeah, it sounds like the to-do list is still long. That's awesome. You guys keeping busy.
Yep.
Okay, I would have one last question. Because we also talked about like talents, hiring, and everything. So what would be your opinion on a good junior developer? Maybe that's something we can cover quickly, and then I will let you guys go. No worries.
Darren, do you want to take this first?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I remember when I started, I won't say how long ago, a few years ago, as a junior developer, straight out of uni. I remember thinking, I've got to prove myself. I've got to keep my head down. I need to get, I need to write as good code as I can. I need to get out the door. And I remember having a review with one of my managers at the time, and he said to me, look, you need to, if somebody needs to come and ask you a question, or they just want to have a chat, it's part of your job to answer the question and chill out a bit and, engage. And that was the first sort of light bulb moment that I had in my head, where I realized like, oh, okay, it's not really about the code when you're a junior developer. It's like, people are investing in you. And the things that I've come to learn. So I've since interviewed a lot of junior developers, and the thing I look for is actually not always academic qualifications. I quite often find the best developers are the ones who just, they've got a degree in physiology, or like, it doesn't really matter, or history. It's the fact that they've gone out their way to learn this stuff because they want to and they have a passion. So that's actually something I look out for as well. And it's about communication and how you work as a team. And also when you're working with other developers, I think it's really important to be humble and open as to, the thing I write is not going to be the best way necessarily. I need to have lots of, I need to get lots of feedback. I need to be so open to improving. You need to, just be humble with everything you do and realize that it's really like a team game. So it's those things that I think are super, super important. Less about the, delivering the highest quality code. It's having a slightly bigger awareness of your impact within the organization and how you work with other people.
Okay, yeah, that sounds like a good way of going about in life in general.
Absolutely. I mean, it's like, I'd almost, nearly summarize to the point of going that like attitude is nearly more important than aptitude in many cases. Coming in with the right frame of mind, being open to collaboration, not being overly precious on your work, making sure that like there's always, everybody brings something, and be open to that, and to be able to work as part of a team is, those are exceptionally attractive skills to see in an individual, particularly from, the perspective of somebody that would be hiring and looking at someone to bring them into a team, because a team is very finely poised. And when they work well, it's amazing the amount of work that can be 10x from the back of that. But, if you have one roadblock in there, or one person that makes shipping, or one part that's it's a bit troublesome in the whole chain of operations, then that's very damaging to the overall output.
Okay, yeah, really appreciate your input, guys, and also really appreciate you taking the time today. Reading the docs and studying the theory is always one thing, but then hearing from people who are actually in the industry, that is invaluable, I think. So is there anything else you would like to touch on, or anything you would like to mention to the developer community? The stage is yours.
I suppose, I mean, the only two bits of advice, and I would have given this inside in Shopify as well as outside of it, is lean into what you know or what you're passionate about. There's no point trying to decide to build something that you don't have a heart for, or that you don't find is going to interest you, because there's going to be challenges, there's going to be difficulties, there's going to be setbacks, there's going to be all of those areas where you get points of frustration. The only thing that tends to carry you through is really if this is something that you feel that you're committed to, or you're passionate or get excited about, and just make it your own. Don't, like, I mean, we've seen cases of it where people try to, mimic, being the politest term I could probably use, other people's work and so on and so forth. You go and be honest with yourself, be honest with the merchants or the agencies or whoever you're building for. Be honest to yourself and be honest to what you're creating. Those are the only main pieces of advice I could add, I think.
Okay, integrity. Darren, maybe you?
Yeah, sure. So I would say always keep in mind the end result and who's using it and how they'll be interacting with it. I think writing code for the sake of writing code is all very well, but bear in mind, the end result, and try to think in that wider sense. And then the other bit of advice would be just enjoy the time we have left as developers before we will get automated by ChatGPT and Copilot. So yeah, that's another podcast though, but yeah.
Yes, definitely. Okay, amazing, guys. Yeah, then thanks so much for taking the time today, and exciting to hear what comes in the future.
Right, Jan, thank you so much for having us. Absolute pleasure.
Cheers, Jan. Thanks a lot.